Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Here we are again with another episode of the NLL Flash, continuing on with our season previews. Next up, the Rochester Knighthawks. But before we get there, we have to introduce our guest for this episode, Mr. Ty Merrow of Lacrosse Flash. Ty, how are you doing?
What's up, Tino? How are you doing, man? It's good seeing you.
Yeah, it's good seeing you too. You're not supposed to ask me in return how I'm doing. You're just
I
supposed to
need,
answer the
I
question.
need, I need to know. You and I have been talking tonight for like a solid hour and a half, and I just realized I haven't asked you how your day's going, man. You look good.
Wow, thank you so much. Right back at you. Let's roll right into the Nighthawks conversation, shall we? So they've had a very full offseason, full of free agency and the draft, filling their stock cupboard full of draft picks, including the number one overpick, Thomas McConvey. But Mr. Ty Merrow, in your opinion, of all of their offseason moves, which was the biggest?
As far as immediate impact is going to go, I think you have to go before that draft night when they picked McConvey number one overall. You got to look back at the expansion draft that the Vegas Desert Dogs had, because part of that, Vegas ended up selecting Riley Hutchcraft, and then they ended up picking Connor Fields. And what did they do with them? They ended up flipping them, and there was some pick exchanging going on as well to Rochester, and Rochester ends up sending back Charlie Bertrand and again the aforementioned picks. And that's kind of huge. It ends up shoring up two key areas of need that the team had. It shores up their offensive issues that they were having, particularly over the last 8 games, where about, 6 of them, they failed to score more than 10 goals in. 5 of those were single digits. And it also addresses a goalie depth issue that they had. Like right now, with no Evan Kirk, Rylan Hartley seems to be the de facto number one guy over there, which we've seen his development. We're excited to see where he can go next, but his bell got rung last year, and that affected the games that he appeared in, where he was pretty much, they didn't address him just because of the injury concern. Having someone like Riley Hutchcraft, who has spent years behind Nick Rose in developing, and whenever he gets that taste of NLL action, Hutchcraft has been very solid. It's going to be nice having that option if Hartley goes out there, isn't performing at his best, or maybe you're just trying to see what you got. You got a guy like Hutchcraft who has shown that he is ready to log some minutes in the NLL and take that next step in his development.
You ran through a lot of players there. Lots of love to the goalie union. Love the goalie union. Of all those players that you did run through, or maybe someone that you didn't, who is a player that you think is key to watch this season for the Nighthawks?
Can I cheat? Can I give you 3 names? 2 of them are really.
Give me however many you want.
All right, let's do the 2 easy ones first, because the NLL transaction wire came through when we're recording this episode, and 2 interesting names were placed on the protected player list. Holden Cattoni, who was your leading points getter last season, big, dynamic, left-handed forward with an absolute rocket of an outside shot and a decent playmaker. And Jared Connors, who he was a rookie, didn't really have box experience when he came in, played the final 4 games of the season and had a pretty impressive showing. Cattoni was extended a qualifying offer plus, which is what the NLL and NLLPA are calling qualifying offers now with the new CBA. And him going to the protected player list seems to suggest that there is not a contract in place for him. So Rochester is still retaining his rights. Same thing with Connors. He was coming off a 1-year rookie deal. Rochester still retains his rights, but it doesn't seem like there's a deal in place for him quite yet. So by them holding on, it's going to be interesting to see if a deal comes together sometime over the next couple of weeks through training camp, if it manifests ahead of the season. But as far as a player that we know is going to be playing this year, the one that I'm most interested in is Brad Gillies. The 31-year-old lefty is joining a very intriguing defensive core with a good mix of veteran leadership as well as young talent on the back end that's shown their motor, athleticism, and drive and what they can do and the steps that they've been able to take over the last couple of seasons. Now, he'll be joining a veteran core of Dan Coates and Paul Dawson and really being able to help put his imprint on this team and hopefully lead them to a much better showing. Again, we talk about Hartley not being there and Joel Watson having to step up. Seemed a little shaky at first, but he and that defense really managed to batten down the hatches as games went along. while the win-loss record wasn't necessarily in their favor, that defense showed strides throughout the season. It's going to be really interesting to see how Gillies can come in and help contribute to that next evolution for Nighthawks defense.
At the end of the day, was last season a 4-14 team, not good enough by anyone's standards, especially for a Rochester team that are trying to create a new culture and trying to create a winning environment. So, Ty, what has to happen for the Rochester Knighthawks to make the playoffs this season?
The polite answer is some teams are going to have to underperform in the Eastern Conference. But at the same time, kind of tying back into my previous answer, I think the defense really needs to show that they can make those steps forward, which they did. If they get anything close to consistent play from Rylan Hartley or Riley Hutchcraft, that's not a bad defensive unit. It's going to surprise and really shock some people, I think, this season. But the clear issue, and I think this is what Connor Fields really helps address, is their offense had some really pitiful moments down the stretch last season. And that fed into that whole stat I was saying, where it's like 6 of their games, of their last 8 games, they couldn't record more than 10 goals. And those last 8 games are after they traded Sean Evans. So there was a firepower issue right there. They also lost Charlie Bertrand, who, promising young athlete, going to go his sophomore season, show the Desert Dogs what he can do. But you bring in an established guy like Fields, get him to show that he can be that number 1, number 2 lefty over there. If Holden Catoni returns and those guys manage to get together and really form some chemistry and some bonds, the offense has to step up. And if it does, it shouldn't surprise anybody if Rochester does end up making a postseason run.
Ty, thank you very much for your contributions. Thank you very much for previewing the Nighthawks with us here. And to the viewers, thank you very much for watching another episode of NLL Flash. We will see you next time.